Hello, I'm Bert Bassett. I've been a business seller on eBay for over 20 years. I've even worked for eBay for 11 years. I've helped thousands of sellers of all sizes grow their sales on eBay, and now I'm creating videos to help you. In this video, we're going to talk about how to get the best price for your items on eBay. We're not talking about the easy pricing that comes from having hundreds or thousands of the same item. This is for those sellers that have hundreds or even thousands of different items, and maybe they only have one of each of those items. Then pricing becomes critical because you only have one shot. Once the item is sold, it's sold. You've got to ask yourself, am I consistently selling the items I have at the higher end of the price range? Because that's going to make a big difference to my profitability. So that's what this video is about. This little image sums it up. John will pay up to 100. The question we've got to ask ourselves is, one, how do we know that we have something that we're selling that John will pay up to 100 for? That's a really important piece first. And then secondly, how can we get John to give us 100 or as close to 100 as we can? That's what it all boils down to. And everything we talk about is going to be about that thing. So what's the quick summary here? How do I improve the prices I get? First thing we need to really think about is gut versus brain, as I call it, or selling what you know versus knowing what you sell. The key to this is if you pick a niche or something that you really know about already to sell, it's going to save you a lot of work in the long run. Because you're going to be just more familiar with what things are, what prices they go for. Your gut will be giving you a guide which will save you time when you're looking up prices, when you're looking up items, and so on and so forth. Knowing what you sell is where your gut isn't enough, that you need more specific information, that it's something you're not expert on. And you'll need to have some tools for dealing with when you just don't know. That's the thing. So we'll talk about identifying the thing that you're selling, which is very important. We'll talk about being very conscious of the price range for the thing that you're selling. And then we'll talk about a method that's then going to get you closer to the top of that price range that I've worked out. And the spoiler on this is it's not an auction. As always, I'll do the summary at the beginning and the detail to follow. So that way, if you don't have much time, you don't have to watch all of the video. What I do suggest is if it's valuable to you, even if you don't watch the whole video, please do like and subscribe. So firstly, there's my method for knowing the thing I'm selling and knowing the price range. And to sum this up, firstly, I am always inclined to sell what I know. If I'm picking things that I want to sell on eBay, it's things I'm familiar with from my daily life, from my professional life, from my hobbies, because that saves me so much time. I know when something's a good deal, when I'm buying it and when I'm selling it. I've got a good idea of what it goes for. It's really easy for me to identify specifically what it is because it's just part of my life. And I'll talk about comic books, which is something I know specifically a bit more about. And so I like selling comic books on eBay. But you can't always have absolute knowledge, even within your field of expertise. So then you have to think about, what if I don't know? And under those circumstances, what I do is I use product identifiers, which are things like barcodes, ISBNs, EAN numbers, SKUs, manufacturer part numbers, model numbers, those kind of things that help me know what it is exactly I have. Then I use completed listings on eBay, which is a really quick and easy way of working out what has sold before and how much it's sold for. Then I'll use Terapeak, and I also use another product called Shelftrends. I'm not being paid by Shelftrends, but I think they're okay. There are other providers. And then I always use other sources. So I have a rule of two where I don't just trust what something's sold for on eBay. I'll find another appropriate site to look things up so that I'll see what money it's going for somewhere else where other buyers may well be. And then I very consciously define what knowing an item is. And for me, knowing an item is having the idea of what the highest ever price it's sold for, what the price is that I'd be happy with, and what the lowest price is that I would sell it for. That's my definition of knowing an item, and those numbers are important. And here's my method for selling at the top of the price range, having found out those numbers. The real key to this is don't allow people who would pay more to easily pay less for your items. So my methodology is to start with a buy it now, 20% higher than the highest ever price, add promoted listings, set up best offer. Then I leave it for a period that's right for my business, and then I send offers to all watchers and I allow counter offers. I wait until those offers expire, and then I drop the price and I drop the promoted listings rate at the same time. Then I leave it for a while and I send offers again. And when those offers expire, I just repeat the process, and I keep repeating the process till I'm at floor price. I'm honest with myself about when to give up, and then maybe I'll do an auction starting at a price that covers my cost, and then I'll be prepared to dispose of the item. That's my best methodology. So if you believe me, you don't have to listen to the rest of this YouTube video, because it will all be justifying that methodology. But please like and subscribe if you're leaving now. So what do I mean by sell what you know? Well, the best way to be an expert in pricing is to be an expert in the subject matter of the thing that you're trying to price. If your hobby or your enthusiasm or your work expertise means that there's a product category that you can focus on, then you should do that. And I mean, at an absolutely trivial level, if you just love fashion, that's not me. If you could see me, you would know. But if you just love something, then you'll have a real eye for what looks valuable, what isn't valuable, what's desirable, and so on and so forth. And I'll give you the example. I am a comics fan, not a particularly huge one, but very specifically, I like the Judge Dredd comics. They were the ones that I read when I was a kid, and actually they were the thing that brought me to eBay in the first place. I bought comics in my early 20s that I wasn't able to afford when I was in my early teens, once I had a proper job. And so I've always bought and sold Judge Dredd stuff. And you might say, well, that's very specific. I can't make a living out of something so specific. But I mean, just look at this page. There's 31,000 results for Judge Dredd on eBay within books, comics, and magazines. So you would be surprised at how niche you can be. If you can source the stuff, then be as specialist as you possibly can. You only need to broaden your range if you actually have difficulty finding the goods to sell. But as far as Judge Dredd is concerned, almost the most money I've ever made selling Judge Dredd stuff, I just bought a full, complete set of books for someone who sold them as a job lot for a few £100s. And then I broke that job lot up, identified the value in it, and sold them all individually, and I trebled my money. So you can, if you're an expert, you can actually just arbitrage eBay itself. But what you can also do is you can look at other people inexpertly selling in thrift stores, bookshops, all that kind of stuff. And you'll see that actually the people who get into this thrift and collectibles reselling tend to eventually drift into being more specialist, because that's where they know they can find the value. So selling what you know is a really good way of making sure that you can make more profit. So let's talk about identifiers. The thing about identifiers is they're a really valuable way to find out exactly what you have, and then to be able to search for what the price of it should be afterwards. And I've found a listing from the UK, which is a pretty good example of using that. So it's a Sony PlayStation 2, so it's quite old. There are lots of different versions of this. He's done good images and a good title and things like that. it's not what this video is about. When you go down here and you look at his description and his item specifics, he's used a decent quantity of item specifics. He's said that it's the PAL region. He's got the model written here. He's got the storage capacity. What he's also done, which is useful, is put the console serial number here and the model number as well. And this is the thing. Almost all modern goods now sold have an identifier number. It's usually like a barcode number. It's known as an EAN or an ISBN or something like that. Usually 13 digits. And if you've got the box, the barcode will be on the box. It'll have that. But also there will be serial numbers and model numbers. And if you look at the detail of your products, they'll be embossed on the underside. They'll be on an instruction manual or something like that. When you have that detail, you can Google that stuff. And kind of this is how Google organizes products online. It's with those identifying pieces of data. And you can find specifically what you have. Now, there are two good reasons for that. One, if you find you have something specific and valuable, you can leverage that. It's much easier to find other people who've sold or are selling a similar thing. But on top of that, you're way less likely to accidentally sell something that's different from what you think it is, and thus get an item not as described. So be really conscious when you find something and you want to price it, of working out that identifier. If there's no markings and no serial numbers, if it's a real collectible, then apart from typing into the Google search box and eBay box what you think it might be, the other thing that's pretty useful is using Google Lens. And you'll have to just look up how to use that, because take me too long to do another video on that. But you can take photos of things on your phone, and then you can press the search button and it'll pull up all the things that look like it or are like it that are on the net, and you might be able to find something that way. So with the photo we previously saw, it might well have been that if someone who was the seller of that item initially had taken a photo of it and done the Google Lens search, they might have found that it was in fact the valuable picture that it turned out to be. So identify your product as solidly as you can. The less you know about it, the less accurate your price is going to be. And spending a minute on that is probably going to be one of the best uses of your time when you're thinking about how much you allocate time-wise to selling an item. I will do a video about that. The number one thing is take as many photographs of your product as you possibly can. That's literally the number one thing you should do with your time when selling items on eBay, over every other task. But certainly high up in that list would be really sure about what it is exactly that you're selling. I feel as though if you're the kind of person who watches my videos, you're probably obsessed enough about eBay to be advanced to know about this, but I've got to mention it. It's finding out pricing by using completed listings. So you search for what you're looking for, and you think, oh, look, these are the prices that people are getting for their products. It's not. It's what they're asking for their products. So you have to scroll all the way down, and on the left-hand side, you can tick completed items. And then if something's in green, it means it's sold for that amount. So this cartridge went for $9.99. These ones were unsold. They just ended without selling. This one went for $60. So what you can see is when this sold on eBay, how much did they get for it? Which is a pretty good, quick way to give you a sense check for what price you're going to get. And also what's important here is to scroll through this, because what you're really looking for is the highest price that it's gone for recently, because you don't want to aim to be the person who sells it for $4.99. You want to aim to be the person who sells it for 50 quid or whatever. I know I'm not comparing like with like, but when you're looking at completed listings, that's what you're looking for. One, are you searching for the actual item you have? And two, what's the biggest price that it's gone for? Not interested in the smallest price. The other way to check on prices on eBay is to use Terapeak. It's now called, actually, just under the research team, it's just called product research. But, people call it Terapeak because in the old days, Terapeak was a separate company. eBay purchased them and then put the Terapeak data into the seller hub. They've actually stripped out a lot of the functionality of it, mostly because of privacy for other sellers and things like that, but also because eBay cares about people growing the business incrementally, not necessarily about eBay sellers fighting against each other. That doesn't make eBay any more money. They want more stuff. They don't want one seller taking sales off another one, because that doesn't give them any net gains. But with Terapeak, it's not useful for a lot of stuff anymore, but it is pretty good on specific item search and comparison. So I've typed in Canon PowerShot A470, which is a vintage, 1990s is vintage, a vintage digital camera. I have one of these that I'm going to sell. And I've made sure I've filtered by category. I've looked at the last 90 days. These graphs aren't particularly useful anymore. They've stripped out total data and things like that. What's interesting here is, look, here are the ones that have sold recently. Has anyone sold more than one? No, because it's a vintage item. But I'm looking at this, and another thing that's useful here is not only does it give me the sold price of stuff, but it effectively allows me to see one that got a good price, and then I can actually look at this listing and say, how was it presented? How was it described? What was it about this particular listing that made it desirable? I think this fella just got lucky, because there's nothing particularly special about his listing. But that's why Terapeak can be good for pricing up things. Just whilst I'm here, if you want something that's a bit more like Terapeak was in the day, which allows you to deep dive into sellers and brands and things like that, then what you can do is you can try this thing called Shelftrend. I don't take any money from Shelftrend. It's not a paid endorsement. I'm sure there are other products as well. This is just the one I use. And it just allows you a little bit more sophisticated sales. It's presented in a slightly better way. And if you have, for instance, a competitor, someone who's doing well in your field, you can have a bit more of a depth analysis about what they're doing, things you can't do with Terapeak. I think full price is like $29.99 a month. At worst, if you're serious about what you're up to, subscribe to it for a month or so, because you can always switch it off. There is a free trial, but the free trial doesn't show you all of the features. And if you can't see all of the features, you won't know whether it's useful to you or not. So dip your hand in your pocket and give it a try. At worst, you'll have to have one less pizza or something like that. It's not a big expense, but it's certainly interesting. Then let's talk about the rule of two and other sources of information. eBay is just a thing in and of itself. People selling stuff on eBay may be non-experts selling things to non-experts. So sometimes the price on eBay is not really a reflection of the true value of the goods. And so therefore, the really sensible thing to do, again, if you have a bit more time, is to sense check. I mean, if you're selling new stuff, then Amazon is a good place to benchmark against, because everybody seems to be shopping there. For more unusual things, you should start establishing yourself a network of other places where you can look up the price of goods. So, for instance, I sell some books and comics, so I use AbeBooks. AbeBooks is actually owned by Amazon, if you didn't know that, but it's a very good used book site, and the trade use it. So the like the proper used bookshops will be listing stuff, and the more unusual stuff is much more likely to be on here, because the guys know that serious people are trading on this platform. So if you have a book that's like $1,000, then this is the place where it'd be. So if you're really not sure about printed materials, this would be a good site to go. But there are sites like this for all marketplaces, and it doesn't take much research to do it. I'll show you one more, which is Bricklink. Again, I think this one's actually owned by Lego now, but this is the Lego site. So you get yourself some unusual thing and you want to know the price of it. This is going to be very definitively the market price for something like that. So, it's not triangulation because you're only using two sites, but think about another place where you can look up how much your item might be worth. And with those steps of knowing what you're selling, you should be at this stage in a position to have some prices in your head. I said in my summary, sometimes the people who would pay the most are the ones who pay the least. And as an example, I'm revealing a slight obsession of my own. This is from my actual Gmail account. You can see I have a lazy Friday today, which is why I'm making this video this morning. This is one of my saved searches, and it's for a very specific book in the Judge Dredd mega collection called Tour of Duty. I know, because I'm a relative expert in this subject, that this is quite a rare one of a series of books that often go quite cheaply. And when I wanted to purchase my copy, I wanted to make sure that I got the best deal that I could for it. And so I have a saved search. I know that you can sell this book for about £20 because it doesn't come on the market very often and it's reasonably desired. So whenever I look at this now, I just keep it switched on. I've bought the book. I bought the book multiple times and sold it multiple times now, actually. You can see what's going on. And you can see with this list that I can see, you know, £7.50 plus £3.39, £8, £10, all of these kind of things. And people are underselling this product quite a lot. I know if I buy this for under £10 and I'm relatively patient and list it, then someone's going to come along one day and they're going to want to buy that book. And at the time, I'll be the only person on eBay who has that book, and they will pay £20 for it. It's a small example, but what you've got to remember is that your most motivated buyers, your experts, are sweeping through eBay looking for bargains, and they love putting a low bid on an auction and hoping that no one else bids on it. They're the kind of people who snipe in the last minutes of an auction. They're the ones who see something that's an £8, buy it now, and they snap it up, buy it really quickly. So if you have got a long history of selling items, look at how many items you've sold that you've sold within maybe a day. You probably think that's a good thing. You're sitting there going, yay, I listed something, it's sold out almost immediately. That's a bad thing. If people are seeing your items and going, that's a great deal, I'm going to buy it, when you have collectible items and one-offs, means you've priced it too low. You want it to be at least a few days so that more than one person can have looked at it, that they're not snapping your hands off because it was a bargain. So remember that. The people who would be prepared to pay the most are often the ones who pay the least. And you've got to think about that when you set your pricing and when you set up your auctions. Selling things quickly is a sign that your pricing is too low rather than a sign of your account health. I've been a salesperson almost my entire working life, and you're taught as a salesperson to keep asking questions until you can't ask any more questions. And as a seller, you have to do this of yourself so that you really know what your strategy and goals actually are. So keep asking yourself, why am I selling? What is the outcome I need? How realistic is that? And I've seen so many sellers that have started with vague ideas, and I've said to them, you've got to the end of the year, you might as well get yourself a paper route. You'd have earned more money working in a supermarket than what you've done. You haven't valued your time. You haven't valued your space. You haven't valued your personal relationships, the effort, the sweat, and things like that. So really start asking yourself, what do I want to achieve? Now, you don't have to achieve it immediately, but you have to say, I am working towards this goal. I'm making some sacrifices. I'm not hitting the performance indicators, but that's because I'm on a journey. But I definitely have to get to that. That's my direction of travel. And really, it kind of boils down to space, time, and money. A lot of retailers that I've encountered almost have this idea that they rate their business on like a kind of weird number, which is how much money am I making per day per square foot. How much time do I have? How much space do I have? How much profit do I need to make? And then they work from there. So when you're thinking about pricing, we talk about what an item is worth and what its intrinsic value is, but think about its value to you. An item that is sitting on your shelf and not performing any economic activity is not making any money. And more importantly, it's blocking that shelf from having something on it which could be performing some economic activity. So again, when we go back to your fear of not cashing out, remember that if you sit on an item for a really long period of time because you think it's definitely worth $100, you're actually freezing yourself up economically, and you might be better off getting rid of it at $80, saying I could have made more, in order to put something else on the shelf that you can make dollars with. By the flip side is, if you're a bit more relaxed about that, I mean, you might have lots of space, you might have lots of time, the imperative might be there, then you can take a more relaxed view. And this is kind of important because the more effort and the more time you put into items, the much more likely you are to get more money for them. You know, if you spend a month selling something, so many more people, potential customers, are going to see it. So many people will be able to think, oh, I'm not sure about it, but then take the time to make that decision. So what you might find is that you say, well, my warehouse is only half full, so I'm going to stay high priced and I'm just going to fill up the rest of my warehouse with stuff which might sell a bit more quickly. Or you might say, I'm absolutely full to the brim of everything. Or indeed, my gas bill is due, at which point you reduce your pricing. So on the one hand, you've got how much is this actually worth? And then you've got how much is it actually worth to me, given my situation of space, time, and money. So be really aware of these kind of things, because some of the tips I'm going to give you going forward to get a better price, they will take time. And that might not be the sensible move for you, given your specific conditions and your specific goals. I could talk for days about why I don't like auctions, but what I'll do is just rant on for a short period of time to explain myself. And then you can extrapolate from there and come up with your own arguments. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. The reason I don't like auctions is because of just the maths of it and how people actually act. What you've got to remember primarily is that it's what you'd almost call a second price auction. The amount that your item goes for is not determined by how much the highest bidder is prepared to pay. It's set by how much the second highest bidder is prepared to pay. So you can't possibly get as much as is mathematically possible, because there will always be one person who's prepared to pay more than another. So here's your example. John will pay up to 100 for an item. Phyllis will pay up to 60. The auction starts at $20. If they both see the auction and they both bid on it, you're going to get 61. If Phyllis doesn't even show up, maybe she's on holiday, maybe she's not looking at eBay that week, you're going to get $20, even though John would have paid 100. If John is away, then Phyllis 60. Well, she won't, because unless there's a lower bidder than her, in which case she'll pay 20. There's just so much that can go wrong in terms of what people are prepared to pay for your item. And in theory, the reason why you still do an auction is hopefully you'll find two whales who will bid in a frenzy, or loads of people bidding. But then you add on top of that people who are good at eBay and spend a lot of time buying on there are very savvy about the way in which they bid. They drop in late. So actually, what may happen is John will bid a maximum bid of 50, knowing that he could probably spend up to 100. Phyllis comes in just before the auction ends and bids her 60. And John is, he's down the daycare center, he's going to get his meds or whatever, he's watching MacGyver, and he doesn't see the auction ending. It just like this I do not like, and yeah, I'm stuttering now because I just can't see why someone with any kind of time and effort on their hands would use an auction. Obviously, the flip side of that is the best way to do no work and get the best price you can get for no work is to stick it on auction and see what happens. And if you had a million items and no time, then you just bang them all at auction and it would work for you. But what I'm assuming is most people watching this video do have time, do have effort, and therefore are prepared to make that trade-off. And that's why you shouldn't do auctions if you can avoid it. A common theme of this pricing is that one of the keys to getting higher prices is making it so that more people see your item. It's very true of auctions, but if you're following my advice, you won't be doing auctions. But even with buy it nows, especially if you're using a method where you start with high prices and then reduce that price, then having a lot of people look at it means that you have a far greater opportunity for someone to buy it at a higher price. So I'm amazed by the amount of sellers who don't attempt to make more of a fuss about their listings. Promoted listings is a route, especially if you start with an artificially high price. You can actually create a bit of a buzz by overpricing an item, making people look at it and go, oh, Jesus, that's expensive. And if you accidentally sell it and you have to pay the promoted listings, you've still made loads of money. So promoted listings is one way. On the actual eBay platform itself, you have buyer groups. With your buyer groups, it tells you who's bought from you before, and you have abilities to like send a coupon to all of them, saying, "Yeah, I've got some new items. Do you want to have a look?" What you've also got is social. I don't link my social to eBay. I just run my own account separately. But certainly, if I've got anything interesting or unusual to sell, I will post it on my socials, because you never know. One more person might look at it than you thought, and that person might be your buyer or someone who create some pressure on the item. The other thing that's really useful if you've it's quite a new feature. It's less than a year old, I think. Oh, maybe a little older than that. Is your shop newsletter, which means when you have new stuff in, you can send lists of those items out to previous customers and people who've subscribed. If you're doing a promo, you can send details of that out. And so that's another important thing, is that, around your seller communications, make sure that on your listings and when you send out an item, that you try and encourage people to subscribe and follow to you as a seller, and to allow you to message them again. Just generating a little bit of heat around your items will help you immeasurably in terms of your price. And obviously, you don't have to limit this to just kind of eBay and eBay adjacent. Again, especially if you're in that, I know what I sell because I'm an enthusiast myself, you will know the blogs, you will know the subreddits, you will know the Facebook groups, and so on and so forth, where you can talk about this kind of stuff. In the world of comics and stuff, you can get a great deal of intelligence, for instance, on those Judge Dredd comics. I know from the Judge Dredd subreddit, where people are saying, look, I can't get hold of this item, or this item has finally come back into print, and things like that. That wider audience that you can use, it's definitely worth it. And again, that's another good reason to sell what you know, because you're kind of going to be in those spaces online anyway, and it's not a chore or something unnatural or an extra job for you to be active in those places. So let people know when you're selling something. So let's get back to the method which we talked about at the beginning. I've already run through this, the idea being that you start with a high fixed price with loads of offers and promotions, that you make offers, you receive offers, and you move your price downwards. I think the only thing I really need to add to this is just how is this practical to do? How do you administer this system within eBay? Because actually, the way that eBay Seller Hub is set up right now, it's actually quite convenient to do this method. It's not quite as labor intensive as you would imagine it to be. We'll just go to one of my private accounts to show you how the mechanics of this would work. You can see here I have all of my listings. And if you're going to use this methodology, what you can actually do is the page is listings active. If you want to go to it, you'll see this customized table here. And with the customized table, you can pick what's in the report and on screen, and you can change the order of it here. And so what I've done to make it easy for me is I've got the start date here. So it tells me how old an item is. It gives me the amount of watches it has. And it's got the price here. So if I'm using this screen, then I can just go through a rhythm of sorting things by their start date, by clicking the up down arrow here and saying, right, here are my items that I listed on this day. They haven't sold. And so now is my send offers day. Now is my price change day. Now is my change my promoted listings. Because if you look at it, you don't need to go into each individual listing. You can just do it from this table. You can alter your price here in current price. There's a little pen. You can change your promoted listing rate from here. You've got your start date here. You can see the amount of watches, and obviously you can send offers, or you can click here, and from here you can do actions as well to the listing. So this is a good page to administer it. And once you get your rhythms going, what will happen is you'll say, actually, for me, I'm going to do all my pricing work on a Friday and then a Monday. So on Friday, I'll send my offers. I'm going to wait the whole weekend to see if anything happens. And then on Monday, that's when the price drop happens. And then I'll wait till Friday. And you can set your own rhythm. But using this page, you'll find that even if you have quite a lot listed, you can actually do this methodology. And whilst it is more effort than just turning on an auction and hoping, or having a fixed buy it now price that you just sit on for ages, it's maybe not as much work as you imagine. And it may well be that you have some automated software if you're listing a lot. I can't really give a video which gives advice on every single piece of automated software. So I'm just going to have to tell you, you use this methodology and apply it in the appropriate way given the tools that you have to list and price your items. So finally, we reach the end. And I'll do the summary at the end as quickly as I can because you've been here for so very, very long. It breaks down into a few parts, really. Having good knowledge about the stuff that you sell is going to make it so much easier for you to achieve higher prices. So really do consider niche selling. There's lots of demand, even in seemingly quite small areas. If you can source the goods, then go for it. Be an expert in what you sell. If you have to be a bit more broad, then it's really important to spend time in identifying what you have. And really what that boils down to is you knowing what a really good price for something is and what a bad price for something really is. Then you need to do a bit of self-examination and think about how quickly you need to shift stock, how much space you have, how much money you need to earn in a certain time, and apply that over the top so that you have an intrinsic value for the product, but you also know how valuable it is to you and when it stops becoming valuable because it's taking up space, it's taking up time. Once you've got that, that will inform the methodology that you use, how complex it is, how fast it is, you know, whether it's geared to get you the most money you can possibly get out of an item. And then you can get into selling. And then so long as in your head you're thinking that like one of your major enemies is actually enthusiastic buyers snapping up your items at a price that's lower than they were prepared to pay, then you can use a variety of methodologies. I suggest my reverse priced buy it now kind of methodology is the best one. And you will achieve the best prices. And actually, if you think about it, how can you grow your business? If you start shifting from selling your items at the level where people are at the top end of their tolerance for how much they're going to pay versus at the bottom end, that can have quite a significant effect on your bottom line. So good luck. Really want to hear comments on this one because I think it's going to be a really interesting comments under this video. There'll be a lot of opinions and I think a lot of insights from you guys. Please also tell your friends, like the video and subscribe. Thank you very much.